What is up, YouTube? I'm here to do Bleach, Chapter 546, Chapter Review. The title of the chapter is The Last 9 Days, and there's a lot to talk about in this chapter. I'll try and keep it very succinct for time's sake. First off, this chapter was pretty decent. We do know it is the last chapter for a few months, so we have to kind of cherish it, you could say. If you haven't seen my last video on Bleach, pretty much we know the whole manga is coming to an end. We know that because the author has announced it, and this will be the last arc. And I really think this is a good cliffhanger, a very well set up chapter. Best chapter ever? No. But very good setup chapter to set up the hiatus. They're going to do like a few months hiatus all the way until September before the next chapter is released. Why? Because the author wants, some sort of break to prepare properly this final arc ending Bleach. I mean, I said quite a lot in my last video on it, but basically Bleach, I've been following it for years. It's very, very sad, but on the upside, we will still have like at least half a year. Let's just move on. So this chapter, first things first, I don't understand why this guy, the new Captain Commander of Soul Society, which I'm pretty sure you only get one new Captain Commander every, who knows, 10,000 years or something. I mean, the old one was like at least 1,000 years old. But this guy, first off, another thing in Soul Society, it seems like people age because the Captain Commander age, as does everyone in Soul Society. So my question is, can you die of old age in Soul Society? Then how is that any different from the human world? Isn't Soul Society supposed to be like the next level after you die in the human world? I mean, I know that most of the Shinigamis in it were not humans initially. They were born into Soul Society. But it still makes very little sense. If someone could clarify or knows the answer, or maybe just discuss it, because maybe there is no answer. Maybe it's a plot hole. Leave a comment below and discuss that. And by the way, if there's any background noise in the background, I'm totally sorry, but this is my hectic lifestyle. I have a lot of siblings. So, what I didn't understand about this was, why is this Captain Commander coming all the way out here when there's this huge war going on? And, well, not going on, but it's about to start, and he needs to prepare because he lost. He lost before. Despite him being promoted, that doesn't mean he's super strong or anything. I don't think he got any power boost from his promotion to Captain Commander of Soul Society. He should be training or something. And then later on in the chapter, I realized, okay, it kind of makes sense. This is very important to Ichigo's friends. Therefore, he has to take the time out, no matter how great the urge, because he knows Ichigo is the savior. And this is very important to Ichigo, and he knows he's placing all his trust in Ichigo because he knows he himself is weak as F. He knows he can't beat out the Uryu and all the Quincy alone. So it kind of makes sense. So my question is, why are you taking up like this, like at least half the chapter on this kind of thing? I know it's important and stuff, but these are apparently Ichigo's close friends, and yet at the same time, we've barely seen him. We've barely seen any of them in the last 400 chapters of Bleach. Barely. And from what I've gathered, I mean, Ichigo's pretty much been gone constantly pre-time skip. And then post-time skip, it's like, sure, after he lost his powers, he probably, hung out with these guys, and they became close friends with him, or they were already close friends with him. But they just seem like such minor characters. And I said minor 3 times because there's so many different levels of minor characters in Bleach. I just didn't really understand why he was making such big emphasis on this. But regardless, I really like the sentimental value of it, and the whole idea of the captain commander of the entire Soul Society coming out and presenting these soul tickets to these guys so they can visit Ichigo. The only problem is, I don't know, it took up a little bit too much of the chapter. But maybe that's just me overstating things or over exaggerating things because the chapters come week by week, so every page is precious. Honestly, if I was reading this just straight out, like as if there's still 200 chapters ahead of me, then this wouldn't be that big of a deal. But here we are with the week by week thing, with the new chapters. And so I do think they spent a little too much time on this. There's too much emphasis on these minor characters. I don't think they're that. I mean, sure, they're close friends of Ichigo, but it's not that important. I guess it does bring some sentimental value, and it's very heartwarming, you could say, at the very least, that the captain commander went out of his own way to do this rather than taking on a subordinate and telling him to do it. But I really think he could have done it, and that would have been for better, because there's so many subordinates he could have used to do the same thing. And these close friends of Ichigo do not even realize how high stature this guy is, so I don't think there's a big point, but regardless, moving on. So then one of Ichigo's friends asks, sorry, I don't know their names, but she asks, what are the odds, okay? What are the odds that Ichigo can return? And she's like, is it 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000? And then he's like, they're astronomical. So I'm assuming higher than 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in 1,000,000. If that were the case, then obviously this wouldn't be Bleach if it didn't happen. So for him to say it's astronomical and so very unlikely means it's most likely going to come true. That's just Bleach for you. That's usually what happens in Bleach. So probably 1 in 1,000,000 chance. Still, it's probably going to happen. And that is why he went out and presented soul tickets and stuff. And he's like, I'm just going to do it even though the odds are astronomical that Ichigo will actually get this done. So there's 2 implications that I want to branch off of this. First and foremost, why are you doing this to these friends? Why aren't you approaching the more important people to Ichigo, the slightly more major characters such as Ichigo's family? Then I find out that they have already been approached. So that answers that. Second implication, why can't Ichigo return? Apparently, once he gets his power boost in this VIP section of Soul Society, he will be some sort of amalgamate or mixture of Quincy, Hollow, Human, and Shinigami, which will cause all sorts of mayhem. Maybe his aura or something is incompatible in the human world and might cause problems. And so that's probably my best prediction. So I have the manga to my left just for a quick play-by-play. So just, again, spoiler alert, and also no chapter summary. I'm assuming you've read the chapter already, so there will be a lot of skimming over just to get to the most important points. Next, Inuo and Chad are in the Hueco Mundo, and we find out what they're doing. They're scavenging and saving Aaron Carr. First off, it's been so long since the Aaron Carr arc, I'm pretty sure they're either dead or have found ways to survive themselves. So as far as saving is concerned, I don't understand that. But we finally know what they're doing. The big secret mission, I really expected something more amazing. Ever since the very first Chad fight, I've been disappointed. I really thought he was going to be a major character. I thought he had the potential to, keep up with Ichigo, and there's that vow at the very beginning of the manga where he made with Ichigo, and he was like, I'm always going to protect you. I'm always going to grow stronger and protect Ichigo. And he hasn't been able to keep up with it for a long time now. Ichigo's far surpassed him. And I guess it just has to do with the other anime slash manga I read. I think it was Yu Yu Hakusho, where the main character had a sort of best friend who pretty much almost kept up with him throughout the manga, even though he was human, whereas the main character was half demon and had that sort of advantage. And so, Chad, I'm a little disappointed. So they're just pretty much minor characters doing minor low-level things, scouting and picking up Aaron Carr. Oh well. A lot of discussions been brewed up, and it seems like people are talking and saying that Grimjow, who was not killed in the Aaron Carr arc, will be returning. Everyone likes this guy for some reason. He has a huge fan base. I'm like, meh, he's not that strong. He looks pretty cool, but other than that, meh, he's not that strong. He doesn't have any unique ability. I would much rather see what's going on with Kenpachi Izaraki, because his power level is infinite. His potential power level is infinite. He has been unleashed for the last, who knows, hundreds of years of life. Zaraki has been caged. He has been unable to progress in terms of strength ever since he was little. And now he has been released. We found out that he was caged. He was prohibiting himself from growing stronger ever since he never found anyone who could beat him until he found Ichigo, but that didn't stop him from limiting himself. So now he's released. He has infinite potential, similar to Ichigo. And although, again, another tangent, although Ichigo is like this amalgamate of all these different forms, Hollow, Shinigami, Quincy, Zaraki Kenpachi is just Shinigami. And so I really think Ichigo and Zaraki are probably at the top, along with the Spirit King, if he has any powers. And then the four gods of the Spirit Kings, of course. Then I think the Captain Commander is pretty weak, so I'm not going to include him. And then Aizen's probably the only one that comes in place, not including any of the Quincy. Why? Because Aizen has all these abilities where he's also technically he's technically an imperfect form of the a mixture of Shinigami, Hollow, and not Quincy. Quincy is not included. And so we find that Ichigo is pretty much the perfect mixture of everything. Whereas Aizen made the mistake of not including Quincy, and despite him getting really close with the use of I think it's called the Hogyuken sphere, despite that, he could not attain this perfect form. It was still imperfect, and he lost. And he failed to include Quincy in the mixture. And despite just choosing Hollow and Shinigami, he could not attain this perfect form. And the thing with that is, he did beat Ichigo at that point, though. It wasn't Ichigo who finally defeated Aizen, although Ichigo weakened him tremendously. And the other thing is, Aizen does not have the Hogyuken sphere anymore, if that's what it's called. And so he's not at full power, whereas Ichigo is constantly... He doesn't need any sphere to get that power. But then again, he did lose all his powers with that final attack, so he has to retrain and stuff. Maybe he'll use the final Getsukyuga again, and then blow out all his powers yet again. Who knows? Maybe that's the surprise ending. You're going to hear here first. The surprise ending, spoiler alert, to Bleach the manga is that Ichigo will use the final Getsuga, and it will eliminate all his newfound powers, and he will end up returning to the human world and living a normal human life until he dies. Or the ending could be that Ichigo defeats the bad guys and then gets stuck in the Soul Society world while his friends are able to visit him with the soul tickets. And the only problem is that he's kind of stuck like Goku in DBZ, where he has to infinitely, for all eternity, fight bad guys. But Goku loved doing that. He was very happy about it. I mean, Goku's an optimistic person, kind of a naive person, so maybe that's what Ichiko will choose to do. You heard it here first. Anyhow, so here we are with Inuo wishing that there's no war and stuff. And I really think these characters have fallen out. They have become very weak, and they've pretty much become minor characters who clean up the scraps after the fight. They're pretty much like secondary medics. Then we see this huge sphere surrounding Soul Society. And it seems, at first I thought the black parts was like the sphere being constructed. And then I realized it was being torn apart. And so I'm like, what the heck's going on? And go ahead and leave in the comments what your thoughts on this is, because I need some clarification on this. I don't know exactly what's going on. The sphere is being torn apart, and we all know that this sphere protects Soul Society. I believe it was destroyed during the first invasion with the Quincy, so I don't think that's that big a deal. Maybe it's a strengthened version, but the point is it gets just wiped out immediately. And then we see all these people, we see the Quincy, and I'm thinking, is it already time? Is it already a time for them to attack? And it turns out, no, it isn't. But it's still very shady. Like, we don't know what they're doing. Uryu is there, and it seems like it's some sort of covert mission. Well, there's nothing covert about it. I mean, the whole sphere has been destroyed. Everyone's going to be alerted. But it's only them. It's not, the rest of the Quincy army is not there. And so I'm thinking it's some sort of co-op mission or something. Not co-op, covert mission. We don't know. It's something under the hood. They're there again to do something before the big battle. And so, yeah, people are freaking out. The Sarah Tay apparently just vanished into thin air. And finally, this last few pages makes the manga. If it weren't for these last 2 pages, the rating for this chapter would be a lot lower. So then they recite again this sort of saying or sort of proverb regarding the prediction of the return. And it's called the Kaiser Gesang. And it's basically about the sealed king of the Quincy. About how, 9 centuries he will be asleep. Then 9 decades he will gain reason and intelligence again. And then 9 years and his strength will return. And then he points out that there's a final hidden addendum to the limerick, and it says, and finally he will conquer the world 9 days after that. And so it's not the same thing. It's not like it's not something we've seen before. So it goes from 9 centuries to 9 days. And the thing is, there's so much to be said about this. We don't know why the Quincy was sealed in the first place. Who made this limerick, and why do we think this prophecy was made? Who made it, and how do we know that whoever made this prophecy is predicting the future? How accurate is this prediction? And my thinking is, this limerick is just a limerick made by some Quincy years ago who made some plan to overtake Soul Society. Most likely what happened is the Quincy got annihilated. Somehow this guy survived alone, and so he made this limerick himself. Then he sealed himself up, created a lot of progeny and children, allowed them to propagate, and then made this limerick and said, okay, I'm going to come back in 10 years. This is my prophecy. We're going to ransack everyone. Here's the thing. There's a difference between that and an actual prophecy. An actual prophecy is something where once it's predicted, no matter what you say or do or anything, it's going to happen because it's written down in history. It goes beyond just realism to sort of sixth sense and just predicting the future, psychic powers. And I don't think that's accurate. I don't think, like, why would this be something that's predicted and ground into stone? If that were true, then there'd be no point to this war, and that just means that this guy's going to win in 9 days. Most likely, he made this prophecy himself, and therefore, it's just his own prediction. It may or may not come true, and why is he in Soul Society so early? Who knows? The point is, though, we have a deadline now. We have 9 days, so very, very early on still in this arc. Why? Because if you compare it to other fight arcs, like the big war in Naruto right now, that like has been going on for dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of chapters. Probably not hundreds, but dozens. And we're still in the middle of this big war. Here, it hasn't even started, and we still have 9 days to go before it starts. So I'm assuming we still have a long way to go before Bleach finishes. And so we know this guy, Yawak, apparently is his name, Yawak, is the king of the Quincy. And we know that he is in Soul Society with Uryu and the white-haired subordinate. So my question is why? And the answer is we don't know yet. So it's definitely a cliffhanger. Obviously, they're not trying to start the war as of yet, right? But then again, what doesn't make sense is the fact that he says the end of the world is only 9 days away. But that would assume that he woke up and regained his strength just at that very moment, according to the limericks. So what that's saying is that he was still recuperating his strength when he invaded Soul Society with all of the Quincy. And for him to be so strong already without having all his strength yet is quite amazing. Quite amazing. And so that pretty much means that he's just now recuperated his full strength, and now he has, in 9 days, he will apparently dominate the world, because once you control Soul Society, you control the world. And so that's going to happen. The question is, why are they there right now? Anyhow, like, comment, rate, subscribe, and make sure to share on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, if you really like this video. I'll see you guys next time. And also, one last thing. If you don't read Toriko, please read Toriko, because I picked this manga up 1 month ago. It's better than Bleach. I mean, Bleach, I gotta have it to you. I've been reading this for years. Naruto, One Piece, reading those for years. They're all high quality, but compared to this week's chapter of Toriko, incredible. I mean, just watch the Toriko review, okay? Even if you don't read Toriko, just watch the review, because I might spoil some things, but most of the times you won't understand what I'm saying anyways if you haven't read the manga. And just by watching that review, you will know the amazingness of Toriko. So stay tuned for that chapter of this week's Toriko episode. Subscribe. Peace. See you later.